Good evening. Oh, hope you had a you've had a good few days, a good week, but also in the last couple of days, that Christmas has been a time of joy or of peace or of comfort or really of whatever you've needed. And I've been thinking a lot this last week about the way in which we make these seasons so pressured for ourselves, so full on, and I guess in lots of ways it's because we care. It's because there are people that we love, or there are situations where we want to make sure that we do the very best for the people around us, and we want to make sure that our impact on the world at both a personal level but also at a wider community level, or even an environmental level, is not a negative thing. I hope that you haven't been overtaken by stress or by busyness. I hope that your best expectations have been exceeded and your worst fears not realized. Of course, it's not always like that. Jesus himself said, in this world you will have trouble. And if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of the time, the trouble that we have in this world is not entirely outside of our own making. The rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. There are blessings for those who deserve them and blessings for those who don't. There's also trials and difficulties for those who don't deserve them. In fact, I would go so far as to say no human being deserves the trouble that this world can bring. And so this season, that in so many ways is familiar, the familiarity of family rituals and presents and food and gathering, has also been very, very different for many of us. Filled with restrictions, with memories of loved ones gone, and opportunities passed by, seasons that will not come around again. And so the big kid in me wants to scream loudly and enthusiastically that it's still Christmas, and that I hope that you're having a jolly festive time. But the reality is that not all our hearts can spring into celebration. It's been a tough year. It's been a long year. It's been a year filled with false starts and false hopes, moments when it seemed like we were getting on top of the pandemic, when we seemed like we were getting back to some sort of normality, but it wasn't to be. It's been a year of broken promises and failed expectations for those who were excited about the changes that were happening in the British political system, our relationship to Europe, and those things. Their hopes have not been realized. For those who are fearful, well, not all their fears have been realized, but things are pretty serious in some parts of society. For those who were hoping to build new lives or take opportunities, the chaos has robbed people of those things. It's been a tough year. It's been a long year. It's been a year in which perhaps the less pleasant sides of our society have been seen. I don't wish to be political, but we have seen some of the worst parts of human nature displayed this last year in terms of toxic patriotism, a little England mentality, a sense of zero sum in terms of I can't possibly prosper unless my neighbor is failing, a refusal to accept the responsibility to care for those who don't look like us, or those whose circumstances are so far outside of our experience that we cannot imagine why they would set off for foreign lands and undertake perilous journeys, putting themselves and their families at risk. We've seen the very best and the very worst of humanity. So this evening, I just want to think about some of the things that you might have either said or had said to you this holiday season. You know, I love reading the Christmas greetings that go up on people's social media accounts because they've had a chance to think about them. And so some of them are very eloquent, they're very beautiful. Some of them are very entertaining. Some of them are just to the point. But if you know the person who is making the observation or wishing their reader well, you know how sincere they are. The hope of blessings, the hope of peace, the hope of comfort, the hope of all the different things that we imagine people need or want. And they're beautiful. And so I was getting ready for tonight, and this is the last of these Sunday night live streams for this year. The next time I speak to you, it will be 2022. I thought, well, where better to go to speak about blessings that are available than the Beatitudes? But of course, the Beatitudes are Jesus responding to positions of need or sorrow or difficulty or struggle or lack. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. I can't present to you a plan that says this is how to get the blessing of comfort, because I would with all my heart wish for you not to have another year of mourning. Blessed are the peacemakers. We only have to make peace where there's conflict. I hope you find yourself in a peace that you're not responsible for maintaining or for establishing. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. I would with all my heart that you don't find yourself living in a situation where righteousness is absent. I know we all feel that in terms of our public life, the way that the media or politicians or people of high profiles manipulate and lie and just again and again fail to meet any kind of moral standard with regard to truth or personal conduct. There's many people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, but wouldn't it be wonderful if in 2022 they had been satisfied? And so as I read the Beatitudes, I thought about the blessings that are there. I'm so grateful that God has a response to the sin and the sorrow and the brokenness of this world. And for those who desire something better, there is the kingdom of God. And I believe that you can be satisfied and you can inherit the kingdom and you can receive the good things from the hand of God. But I don't want you to have to be poor in spirit or meek and lowly. I don't want you to have to go through humbling times or oppressed times or times when you're surrounded by dark. I don't want you to experience those things. And as I was preparing that, it got me quite agitated until God took me to a very different kind of greeting, a very different instruction. Philippians 4, verses 6 to 8. It's how I intend to move on from the experiences of this year. I'm better than all those Christmas greetings that wish for people to have what we would desire or what we think is appropriate to the season. These verses speak about an experience that is grounded in who God is, and in our willingness to turn to Him, acknowledging not actually just His power or His lordship, but acknowledging His goodness and experiencing that which we acknowledge. I'm just going to read you these verses. Philippians 4, starting at verse 6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue or anything praiseworthy, Meditate on these things. Be anxious for nothing. You know, that could be a pretty toxic thing to say to somebody. Oh, don't worry. You ever been there? Oh, don't worry. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. You might just as well say to somebody who has lost both their legs, well, you know, grow some legs. Times are tough. Things are difficult. People have concerns and responsibilities. But Paul doesn't just write, be anxious for nothing and stop there. He goes on. He says, be anxious for nothing. Here's an alternative way to live, but in everything by prayer and supplication. So bring it up. Don't just fret about it, but make mention of it before God with thanksgiving. Not thanksgiving for the trouble, not thanksgiving for the stress or the problem, but with thanksgiving that you're heard. You know, Jesus prays at the tomb of Lazarus. He prays, God, I thank you that you hear me. He goes on and explains, I'm only praying that so the people around me understand our relationship. But the gratitude is real. I thank you that you hear me. But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Don't fret about it. Go to Father with it. Don't just panic. Pray. Don't allow it to become something that festers, a weight that traps you, that hinders you, that blocks your vision, that prevents your progress. Be anxious for nothing because you can take your request to God. We know from the psalmist David, we know that you can take your request to God regardless of how well you word it, regardless of whether you understand what's going on. And you can take it and you can express your sorrow, your anger, your disappointment, your heartbreak, your confusion, whatever it is you're feeling. You don't have to dress it up. God knows you and he loves you. He's passionate about you and he's compassionate towards you. Be anxious for nothing. It's not saying it's stupid to worry. It's not saying it's foolish to worry. It's not saying the worries are not real or valid or important. Quite the opposite. They are so important to God that his word tells you, let your requests be made known. Tell me about it, says God. You know, in 2022, I'm sure that there will still be all the people that want to tell me why the world is falling apart. There will be all the news broadcasts that don't really tell you the news. They don't tell you the information, but they try and interpret it and elicit an emotional response because they're trying to sell a product at the end of the day. There will be the people that think what is going on is some terrible planned injustice, and I may not agree with them, but there will be that voice of fear. There will be others who say, well, there's nothing to worry about. And they'll show no compassion or mercy at all on those who are having to worry about it. In 2022, I want my response to be, God, I believe you hear me, and I'm so grateful that you do. So here's where I'm at. Here's where my head's at. Here's where my heart's at. Here's how I feel about it. I'm going to be honest before you. I'm going to tell you the truth of my circumstances. If you don't do anything else in the year that is to come, I want to encourage you to do that. Let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. You know, when you present it to God and you say, God, I need you to step in. I need you to deal with it. God's first response is to calm your troubled heart, to give you his peace. The peace that said, my God is dealing with it now. My God's got this. He doesn't fail. He doesn't falter. He doesn't get it wrong. He knows the end from the beginning. He knows my thoughts before I even think them. So it's not a question of, did I explain the solution right? Did I tell him what I wanted correctly? But as you just open your heart up and you let your requests be known, and you thank him that you know that he listens, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. God, I have no idea how not to be anxious. Bring it to me, he says, and I'll guard your heart. I'll guard your mind. So what to do with a guarded heart? What to do with a guarded mind? What I do when I'm living in that place where I just take my requests and my needs and my sorrows, I take them straight to God in prayer. Well, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. You'll notice there's nothing there that says if anything is necessary, or if anything is advised, or if anything is commonly considered to be what somebody in your position in life should be thinking about. No, no. If it's true. If it's true. You know, in my generation, the idea of truth wasn't particularly popular, but truth didn't change just because we struggled with it. Whatever is noble. And nobility is about bearing. Nobility is about uniqueness. It's about value. It's about status. Whatever things are noble, pure. Whatever things are just. Whatever things are pure. Whatever things are lovely. In a world of injustice, in a world of immorality, in a world where it appears nobody ever gets to face the consequences of some of the world's most abhorrent actions. Think about what is just. Think about what is morally upright. Think about what is pure. You know, the world says, put up with it. Take the compromise. The world wants you to believe that all things have to remain broken, that everything will be a little dark or a little contaminated, a little compromised. It doesn't have to be that way. Whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report. And at that point you might say, well, unless my world changes drastically, unless the news cycle suddenly becomes something else, unless all of the things that seem to pour out of the broken human nature all around us suddenly stop happening, how could I ever be in a position where I don't have to give attention to things that are not noble, not true, not just, not pure, not lovely? Well, Paul goes on, if there's any virtue, if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. If there's any virtue, if there's anything praiseworthy, you know, if there's one who is praiseworthy, it's Jesus. I think it's amazing. All the songs that get sung at this time of year, and people sing them because of traditions, or they sing them because they like the tunes, or they sing them because they tell part of a story. But people sometimes look a little funny at me when what I sing at Christmas is some of the same worship songs that we sing the rest of the year, and all the carols that I pick are carols that relate to the glory of God and the wonder and who he is, because when all things around me seem dark, when the world seems to be closing in and circumstances are so full of horrors and fearful things, if I fix my eyes on Jesus, if I give him my attention and my focus, I know that what I'm meditating on has virtue. He is, after all, the very righteousness of God. I know that the one I'm thinking about is praiseworthy, because God alone is worthy of our praise. And so now, at Christmas, as our thoughts have turned to the incarnation and to Jesus, God with us, but also in the days and the weeks that lie ahead as we go into the new year, a year full of hope and uncertainty, full of things that we believe are going to come about and things that we really hope won't. A year in which people will be people, and time and chance will happen to us all. In 2022, I want to fix my eyes on Jesus. I'm going to meditate on him. I'm going to give him my full attention and focus. Because he is true. In fact, he's all truth. He is noble. The word glory or glorious, it refers to an elevated position of majesty and power derived from his nature as well as his appointed place. He is just. He is just. He didn't come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. He satisfies God's justice at his cross. And by that extraordinary act, all the rest of us are passed from death to life if we will just receive it. Whatever things are just, he is pure. He is perfect. He is through and through. His motives are good, and he's well able to perform them. He's not just a God about the outcomes. He's a God about the journey. He's not just a God about the journey. He's a God who'll bring you through to completion. He's lovely. He's the fullness of the Godhead bodily. He bears all the glory, the majesty on high. In his humanity, we remember what Isaiah said, that there was nothing about him that would draw us to him, that he was not particularly much to look at, and that he was despised and rejected. But to us who believe, he is precious. He's of good report. I'm going to get my eyes fixed on Jesus, but my reading material is going to be the Gospels. It's going to be the declaration of his faithfulness, of his power and his majesty, of his healing touch, of the words that he spoke that no other person has ever had the capacity to speak. It's going to be my meditation. When something breaks in and something needs my attention, when I have to address the problems, the situations, the circumstances, the opportunities, the good things, the easy things, the bad things, the hard things, whatever next year brings, as time and chance breaks on the shores of my life, I'm just going to make my requests now. I'm just going to cry out to Jesus. And I know, because it's what's kept me this far in the year that's gone by, that the peace of God will be mine. So I hope you've had some amazing greetings. I hope people have wished you well and have told you that they're praying for you to be blessed and to be joyful and prosperous and all the things that we say to one another at this time of year. But above all else, if I could add my own greeting. I pray for the peace of God. I pray for you that you would know that freedom, that confidence to just make your requests known, however they pour out of you. I pray that God's peace will overwhelm your understanding, and that Jesus himself will become your focus. So whatever we might hear in the news or read, whatever our friends might be fretting about, whatever things might break on our horizons, that with our eyes fixed on Jesus, you and I, and all God's people, might come through the year that is ahead, clear-eyed, progressing in his purpose, kept by his hand, a people of the peace of God, a people whose response to circumstances is beyond all that could be explained. Lord bless you. Pray that whatever you bring from 2021 into the seasons ahead, that your sorrows will be comforted, that your hopes will be exceeded, that where there has been strife, God will bring his peace, that where there's disappointment, he'll bring purpose, and direction, that where there is just exhaustion, that you might find rest. And for those who are saying, well, actually, I've had a great year. I've been blessed, and I've seen my goals reached, and I've known the peace of God, and I've known what it is to be just resilient and full of energy. And right now, you're there saying, well, I actually, I'm having a whale of a time. And Marcus, do you know what? And forgive me if this seems a little unusual. I pray for you all the silliness and laughter, all the delight that your heart can bear. I pray for you all in abundance, out of which you can pour comfort and joy into the lives of the people around you. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us in the information that appears below these videos. We've really appreciated your company this last 12 months. We continue to pray for you. If you want to get in touch with us, either with prayer requests or just to say hello, we're always just delighted to hear from people. We will be back next Sunday at the start of 2022, the usual time, 8 o'clock. We hope that you can be a part of that then. And as we go into the new year, we'll just be blessing God that He's kept us this far, and that this season that we're living through is just a season. It shall pass, but God will remain faithful. The Lord bless you. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas if you're able. And we'll see you in the new year.